There are legends in Ghana about a trickster named Anansi the spider. In Norse mythology, it's Loki, the shapeshifter. The Tlingit people of the Pacific Northwest told of the mischievous raven whom the tribes of the plains called Coyote. Prometheus stole fire from the gods of ancient Greece. Did you know the island of Maui was named after a Polynesian trickster god who tangled his brother's fishing lines to steal their mother's attention? Surely you cheered Sly Brer Rabbit when he outwitted Brer Fox in the folklore of the Black American South. Tricksters show up in the handed-down stories of Ireland and Italy and India as well. So many tricksters in so many times and places, there must be some near universal human experience or some deeply shared intuition that produces the type, wouldn't you think? Well, there's a wild and quite colorful one in the Bible. He's not a minor character either. His name's Jacob. Or it was when this story got started, at least. And I think I just want to walk us through that strange and beautiful story today before we ask why it might matter or what in the world it might mean. When Rebekah's time to give birth was at hand, there were twins in her womb, we're told back in Genesis 25. The first came out red, all his body like a hairy mantle, so they named him Esau, which means hairy or rough. Afterward, his brother came out with his hand gripping Esau's heel, so he was named Jacob, which means he takes by the heel or he supplants. A few verses on, Esau is grown. He comes in famished from a hunt and sells his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of stew. And then Jacob goes and tricks their father into giving him the blessing meant for the firstborn as well, with lambskins on his hands and the smooth part of his neck so that blind old Isaac will think he's blessing hairy Esau. When Esau finds out he's been cheated a second time, he swears he's going to kill his kid brother as soon as the period of mourning their father's death is over. To avoid Esau's wrath, Rebekah sends Jacob to live with her brother Laban in the land of Haran. On the way, he sleeps using a stone for a pillow one night. And instead of the tortured nightmares you'd expect his guilty conscience to serve up to him, Jacob dreams a dream of breathtaking beauty, with angels walking up and down a staircase to the gate of heaven. And he's told by God that his offspring will be a blessing to all the families of the earth somehow. You'd think this might be when our trickster finally puts an end to his deceitful ways. It's not. Jacob continues on to Haran, where we learn which side of the family tree may carry this trickster gene. Jacob falls hard for Laban's beautiful daughter Rachel and serves his uncle 7 years to marry her. But on the wedding night, Laban sends his older daughter Leah into Jacob's tent, where he consummates his marriage with the wrong sister. Laban says, "Sorry, did I not mention we don't marry the younger sisters first in these parts?" So Jacob serves Laban 7 more years for Rachel's hand. And when it's finally time to return to his homeland with 2 wives and a growing household, there's one more showdown yet. Laban tries to swindle Jacob out of the livestock he was due. But Jacob, look it up, tricks Laban's goats and sheep into producing striped and speckled offspring by stripping some of the bark off of almond tree branches, sticking them in the ground near the watering holes. Don't ask me how it works, but it does. Jacob tricks tricky Uncle Laban out of most of his livestock, which is most of his wealth. And then he heads home to his country and his kindred that include, you'll recall, our trickster's very first mark, Esau, who last we heard was breathing threats and murder. When he hears Esau's traveling toward him with a band of men, Jacob sends messengers and a whole lot of that speckled livestock ahead as a gift, or maybe as a bride he hopes will appease his brother's wrath. And now, it's the night before that meeting. Jacob sends his 2 wives across the river as well, as we heard in our reading today. Those 2 wives being Rachel and Leah, and their maids, and 11 children, and everything else his trickster ways have gotten him. Jacob sends the last of everything he loves and owns across the river and is left alone, wondering what will come of him the next morning, when after all these years he will face his brother. Wondering, I would wager, if there's one more trick left in the old bag to save Jacob's skin one last time. What a story. Even the Cliff Notes version, clumsily told. What a story. Well, like the first night he fled from Esau's wrath, Jacob's all alone as the darkness falls. But this time he doesn't dream because he doesn't sleep. He wrestles, we're told, with a man until daybreak. When the man sees he hasn't prevailed, he strikes Jacob on the hip socket and puts it out of joint. But Jacob wrestles on and on. The man asks to be let go as the sun's coming up. But Jacob, who has spent himself not in trickery this time, but giving all of his strength and his self into this struggle, Jacob clings to the man now and says, I won't let you go unless you bless me. It sounds like the same old Jacob, still greedy for blessings, the one who's been on the lam almost all his life for tricking blessings from his brother and his father, but this is something different. Because struggle is not the same as trickery. And begging for a blessing, holding on for dear life in hopes you might get it, is not the same as swindling your next of kin for one. The man says it's time for Jacob, the heel grasper, Jacob, the supplanter, to leave the old name behind. From here on, he'll be called Israel, because he's struggled with humans and with God, and he has prevailed. The man leaves him, refusing to share his own name. Israel does not roar and gloat at his prevailing and his victory. He gets up and limps off toward the sun that's just coming up across the river that he sent his whole life across the night before. The river that it's now time for him to cross and meet the brother who, new name or not, as far as Israel knows, still wants him dead. I don't know what kind of stories you think ought to be told about your founding fathers. But friends, this ain't any of that George Washington and the cherry tree pap, is it? And remember, this is a story not just about a person, but about a people. If it were told about this country, it would be about someone who was given the name America at the end of a long and very strange night. What would it mean, or maybe what would it do to a people to tell this kind of story about how they became the people they are? Flannery O'Connor said a story is a way to say something that can't be said any other way. So we shouldn't reduce this one to a single edifying lesson. We'd learn or feel different things, for instance, entering it from Leah's perspective, wouldn't we? Or if we looked at it through the blind eyes of old Isaac, this story won't just caramelize into a single moral, but we might lift up an insight or two from this great Hebrew trickster tale. One is that to the question, what will trickery get you in this life? The story seems to answer almost everything if you're good at it. The Bible doesn't justify everything it describes. I don't think it commends trickery, but it does let a trickster show us what the world is still like. And there are many things you can get by deceit in a deceitful world. Read the newspapers. This is still Jacob's world. But the Bible also makes clear that there are things in this life that can't be gotten under certain conditions, because as soon as they're taken by deception or bought for a price, they cease to be the thing you thought you were grasping for. Stand-up comic used to pull out a pocket watch and check the time in his routine. He'd show it to the crowd and say, "It's an old family heirloom. My grandfather sold it to me on his deathbed." The joke worked. I think the joke works. Because an inheritance can't be a gift and also be purchased, can it? Likewise, love ceases to be love if it's a calculated transaction. And you can dupe people into many, many things, but not love. This is something I think our trickster shows us in a powerful and particular way. When his struggle becomes truthful, not evasive, when his transforming encounter is direct with the man at Peniel, when he pours all of himself into it all night long, another possibility, another identity emerges, another way of being. A life maybe not of power grabs and schemes, but life in the realm of what can only come to us as gift, which may come to us only, perhaps, when we've given all of the rest of ourselves away. Lewis Hyde said, "The trickster is a gatekeeper who opens the door to the next world. Those who mistake him for a psychopath never even know such a door exists." Could limping Jacob be showing us one of those doors? Because your story and mine have chapters and characters every bit as corrupt and unseemly as Jacob. There's still much trickery among the powerful of this world whose mantra seems to be, "Try and stop me." A world that tells the rest of us then, you got to watch your back, work whatever angles you have to work. It still rewards greed and calculating ruthlessness, deception and raw power, and not just in my enemies, in me. And yet a door to another world still stands open at every moment, I think. A door to a better way, which is to see your life not as an achievement of your savvy and your will, but as a gift. A gift from a loving God who doesn't trick us into faithfulness or force us into submission, because that's just not love. A gift from the God who woos us with blessings that are given in spite of our selfish shrewdness, not as rewards for it. Blessings given simply because it is the nature of love to bless. A door stands open to us. You won't be tricked or shoved through it, because it's open to life in the realm of gift and love. It will still cost you everything you've tricked this world out of thus far. But could you send all of that to the far side of the river and limp through the door into a different way of being alive?